What is going on, guys, and welcome back to Touchdowns to Home Runs. My name's Bernie. Thank you for joining us today on the Touchdowns to Home Runs show. I hope that your day is going absolutely fantastic. Today, we're going to be doing a preview and prediction of this week's matchup between the Michigan Wolverines and the Iowa Hawkeyes. Now, this is a really interesting matchup, also a very last-minute one, right? We didn't know what was going to happen, particularly with the Michigan Wolverines, who have had their previous two games canceled due to COVID, dating back to their game against Penn State. And we didn't know what was going to happen with Michigan's season, if they were going to be playing, another game or if that was it. But, got things sorted out, scheduled this game against Iowa. As for Iowa, an interesting sort of time for them as well. Iowa is a very solid team coming off an extremely good win against Wisconsin. And we'll get to that box score, in just a second and break that down. But Iowa is playing some fantastic football right now, and I thought, and I think that a lot of other people thought as well, that Iowa was going to try to schedule a game possibly against a more competitive opponent. But again, a weird year. It's sort of a year where you just go sort of with what you can get, with what happens, and I think Iowa just wanted to play this week. It was getting late, so they end up scheduling this game against Michigan. We're going to break the box scores from each of these teams' previous games down. We'll break those down in just a second. But first, let's break down the all-time series between these two teams. Michigan dominated the all-time series with a record of 42-15, also 4 ties. These two teams also did play last year. Very interesting game. Both teams were ranked. Michigan took that one by a score of only 10-3. Michigan scored 10 points in the first quarter, did not score for the rest of the game. And again, big defensive battle, but a lot has changed with both teams in terms of especially their rosters. Let's move over to Michigan. Let's break them down first. Michigan comes into this game with a record of 2-4. Like I said before, previous 2 games have been canceled, including the game that was scheduled for last week that was against Ohio State. Team doctors canceled it. Michigan could not put out a roster, partly due to injuries, partly due to COVID. Team doctors said, we can just not play this game. A lot of people were mad, rightfully so. Ended up not affecting Ohio State as they'll play in the Big Ten championship game in this upcoming week against Northwestern. But again, even though Michigan's on a down season, still always want to play Ohio State. And in no way, as a fan, do I look at it as sort of, I'm thankful that we avoided Ohio State. But anyways, Michigan's last game was against Penn State. That was Penn State's first win of the season. It was by a score of 27-17. It was not a very good game on a lot of different, fronts. Cade McNamara got injured, but he wasn't playing terrific even when he was in the game. 12 for 25, only 91 passing yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. We just didn't see the same Cade McNamara that we saw, the previous week. Wasn't seeing the field the same way. We only throw flat. So again, the defense really focused on those short stuff. Michigan definitely has to at least test the defense, in the secondary on some deep balls, even if they're incomplete. So Cade McNamara gets his shoulder hurt. Joe Milton comes back into the game, passes 1 for 3. Again, inconsistent. He had 121-yard pass completion. But again, it was mostly the running game after McNamara went down, and they were fantastic. I mentioned it in some other videos. We haven't really seen sort of the 3-headed monster that Michigan has in the backfield being used that frequently. But Haskins, Chris Evans, Blake Corum all got involved, and they were all really solid. And that's the first time since, I want to say, the beginning of the season near week 1, that we've really seen the run game get going. Haskins, 17 carries, 101 yards. Michigan, 174 rushing yards as a team. Again, 2 touchdowns on the ground, both from Haskins. And this was a very positive sign. We couldn't get the passing game going. Still a lot of injuries. But this is something, in the run game that Michigan really needed in order to balance out their offense. In terms of the receiving game, Ronnie Bell had 4 touches. He had 40 receiving yards. A.J. Henning also had 3 receptions. Not much again. They didn't do much other than short passes. They don't test the secondary deep. They can't complete the passes, but then they started to sort of tend towards not even throwing the ball down there. Again, AJ Henning, I think, is the biggest thing that we could take away from this game in terms of the receiving. When we look down in the future, he's a super talented receiver, especially downfield. Was a big recruit for us coming into this year, and I think he's going to be one of our top receivers for years to come because he's definitely got all the tools to do it. And we saw in one deep catch, I'm pretty sure it was in the Penn State game. But again, he's shown the flashes, just hasn't gotten the touches. But, I mean, that's what you have with the inconsistency at quarterback. So, going into the Ohio State game, though, McNamara was supposed to be injured. It was supposed to be Dan Villari, the 3-star recruit from Michigan, who was going to start in that game. I haven't heard anything about the McNamara injury report for this week. But hopefully he's back. Dan Villari, a 3-star recruit from last year. But obviously we want McNamara back there. Right now he's our best chance at the quarterback position. So hopefully we can get that sorted out, come the game on the weekend. As for the Michigan defense, still hurt. Again, haven't seen the injury reports at the time that I'm filming this, right? I'm only filming this on Monday. So I don't know who's back, from the injuries or COVID. Hopefully we get some more health. But I really do think this could potentially be the last game for Don Brown. Anyways, let's flip over to Iowa, and boy, what an impressive game they had just this previous weekend. They were playing Wisconsin. Iowa now comes into this game with a 6-2 record after beating Wisconsin by a score of 28-7. Now, this is an extremely, weird year in college football, but Wisconsin was coming in, as not only a ranked team, but, an extremely, extremely talented team. Obviously, 2-3 record now after their loss to Iowa. Not living up to that. But again, 28-7, not a bad win against any team, much less a very, very talented Wisconsin Badgers team. Spencer Petras, their quarterback, 14 of 25 passing, 211 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and no interceptions. Goodson led the way in terms of rushing, 11 carries on the ground, 106 yards. Iowa as a team ran the ball very well, 127 yards as a team. Their offense, very, very balanced. Only 28 points, but they did enough to get the job done. And as a Michigan fan myself, I know firsthand that Wisconsin defense is not by any means, to be taken lightly. They are very, very, very talented. Smith Marset led the way in terms of receiving, 7 receptions, 140 yards, 2 touchdowns. We know how Michigan's secondary does against very talented receivers. We'll have to see what Vincent Gray, Daxton Hill can do this week. Hopefully they're able to contain them. Smith, 30 receiving yards as well. Goodson, 28 receiving yards and 211, as I mentioned before, as a team, and the 2 touchdowns in the air. The Iowa defense, what was really impressive though, again, only held Wisconsin to 7 points. 4 of 18 on third downs, forced them into 2 turnovers. Michigan has not been able to get stuff going offensively, have all kinds of problems, really all over their depth chart. This does not look like a good matchup against Iowa, who comes into this game with momentum. Before we end this video, let's move over to the betting lines. Iowa comes into this game, no real surprise as the favorites. They sit at -14 on the spread. With all the issues Michigan has, I know they got the rest, but they still got the injuries. You're coming off a week you just dealt with COVID, not too much practice, in the past few weeks. Iowa, all the momentum. They look really, really good defensively. They do just enough offensively, and you're already playing a Michigan defense who has really, really not been that great, really over the course of the season. So I like Iowa -14 here. I think it'll probably be closer to 3 or 4 touchdowns. And that's coming from me, a Michigan fan who hasn't even picked against Michigan this year. But we'll have to see what happens, at the end of the week. But anyways, if you guys did make it to this point in the video, thank you. Let me know your predictions and thoughts on the game down in the comment section below. If you did like today's video, make sure to leave a like and make sure to subscribe to Touchdowns to Home Runs. We do preview shows every week for college football. We also do post-game shows for college football and the NFL every Saturday and Sunday. So if this is something that you like, definitely make sure to stick around. And as always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.